the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your host, Joshua. And the question for today is: can transforming the construction industry really solve America's housing crisis? Well, it's quite a complex question, but also, I feel like we've got the perfect guest to answer that question. Mike Kaeding is the CEO of Norhart. They design, build, and rent apartments. They are transforming the way this is done by incorporating technologies and techniques that have revolutionized other industries. This has resulted in improved quality and reduced costs of housing. Ultimately, they are committed to solving America's housing shortage and affordability crisis. Mike, I did some research in Norhart. You guys, I love the culture. First of all, I love what you guys how you guys are setting yourselves apart. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk about Norhart. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, it really first of all, like we talked about this, great studio you have there. You know, quite the stuff that you do at Norhart. But before we really get into it, Mark, I always like to start off the show with this question. Can you tell us about your journey and how you became the
Hmm.
CEO of Norhart? But more than that, you can go way back. What is the origin story of Mike Kading? As a child, did you always know you were going to get into construction or real estate? Tell us your story. What's the story of Mike Kading?
Ooh, good question. Short answer is no,
No.
I didn't. But my parents actually originally started this business. It was very
I
small to
see.
begin with. We built just a handful of apartments growing up. And
Mhm.
I remember growing up, in fact, we lost everything at one point. And my dad
Mm.
was actually kidnapped in Peru. Crazy side story. But growing up with this, like I lived it. There's pictures of me in cribs on construction sites. By the
Okay.
time I was in junior high, I was actually leading teams within what we were doing. And then when I went off to college, the one thing that I knew
Uh huh.
more than anything else is that I wanted nothing to do with the family business.
Well, yeah.
And the reason that was deep down is I didn't want people to think it was given to me. So I
Right.
really
Yeah.
wrestled with my own ego. But
Hmm.
what I realized through that time was that I really just wanted to make some kind of meaningful, positive impact in the world.
Hmm.
And if I was going to do that, why not take this advantage of starting with this small business and growing it to the point of having that kind of impact? So
Interesting.
I jumped in, and my dad and I doubled the size of the company within the first few years of working together. And then one day, unexpectedly,
Hmm.
my dad suddenly passed away.
I'm
And
sorry.
that was soul crushing. In fact, there's some, and go into some really tough war stories during that time. But
Hmm.
since then, we've taken this small business and grown it substantially, much larger than it was back then. And our dream, really long term, is to
Hmm.
continue to scale this up and
Hmm.
driving down the cost of construction so that
Hmm.
eventually we can solve housing affordability for
Hmm.
everyone in America.
That is such a mission. It's so noble as well, and it's quite simple vision that Norhart is trying to achieve. But Mike, you glossed over a few things there. You mentioned that your dad was kidnapped in Peru. You were in a crib in construction sites. You literally lived this. But I just want to also relate because uh, that whole struggling with your ego. I don't want to feel like it's been given to me. I relate to that. It feels like
Mm.
it's just something that most children with companies who with parents who own companies, we feel like we have to make our own. We have to make it our own way, pave our own path. I don't, I don't have to have all this. I love that you were able to overcome that. Most children don't. Most of us don't, aren't able to. And wrestling with that, it takes quite a feat, but also another feat. It's another thing where you took Norhart to where it was, to where it is now today. um, Talk to us about your approaches. This is, first of all, this is very interesting because you're known for incorporating technologies, techniques. It says here, from other industries that have improved, that have worked, known to improve the quality, reduce the cost of housing. Can you show, can you share some examples of these innovations and how they have impacted your project, and how have they allowed Norhart to scale and separate itself from the pack?
Wow, a lot of great questions there. The first thing I would say is if you look at the past 60 years,
Hmm.
industries like manufacturing have improved labor productivity by 760%. During that
Hmm.
same time period, construction's been stuck and they've only grown by 10%. It's
Huh.
really terrible in comparison to the rest of the
Interesting.
world. And
Wow.
so all we're really doing is taking the insights learned from these other industries and
Hmm.
applying it to construction. And we're seeing
Okay.
success with it. We're
Hmm.
achieving about a 20 to 30% drop in those construction costs. And we believe that
Wow.
someday we can get to a 50% drop. But
Wow.
imagine what that means.
Hmm.
That means someday your rent or your mortgage payment could be half. Now,
There you
how are
go.
we actually doing that? Getting to the execution part of your
Hmm.
question.
Please.
One of the first things that we did was we brought all of the work into one company. See, in the
Okay.
world of construction, you typically have a lot of different companies doing different parts of a building.
There you go. Hmm.
Imagine for a moment if a construction company were to produce a car, you would
Hmm.
have a different company installing the windshield, a different company installing the door, and a
Hmm.
different company installing the wheel. And of
Hmm.
course, the wheel company, they would call you up and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but we got delayed on another project and we
Yes.
can't get out to your site for 2 weeks.
Oh
You'd
no.
be shut down." See,
Yes,
the
of
world of
course.
the world of manufacturing, well, the world of manufacturing looks at us and says we're crazy. But in the world of construction, we look back at them and say, this is the way it's always been
Hmm.
done. And
Yes,
so
of
just
course.
bringing the work under one roof gives us control to improve those costs. I'll give you one more
Interesting.
example.
Please.
Once all of that work is in one place, we
Hmm.
can start applying some really revolutionary techniques
Okay.
like
Okay.
the assembly line. I know, revolutionary, right?
Okay.
But you can't take a building and drive it down a line. It's just
Hmm.
too large.
Of course.
But what you can do is you
Hmm.
can take the person and move them through the building. So
Hmm.
right now, about every 5 hours, each one of our teams shift through the building by one unit. And just that
Interesting.
one technique takes a project that may have normally taken 15 months and drives it down to 9.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. First of all, that is quite the groundbreaking concept, just simply because you're going against the norm, right? Because, like you said, people are probably looking at you like you're crazy. What are you doing? This is just the way things has been done, and why would you do that? Why would you change that? But it's always the people who dare to do different that change a lot of things, and I feel like that's what Norhart, exactly what you guys are doing. And the assembly line concept is actually quite interesting because you it feels like you've systematized everything, right? Like you take it from one step to another, and instead of these fragmented little parts that are not exactly synced together, which is actually driving up the price because you have all these different again, parts that aren't really communicating with each other, most likely. What were the challenges that you faced when trying to put this together? Because I understand it must not, I can imagine that must not have been smooth, and trying to people get to adjust to that change. What was it like to put that together, and how did you overcome those challenges of people refusing to change?
It's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not done, right? There's still struggles we have today in executing incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing you start to realize is if you're bringing these different things in house, you
Mm-hmm.
need to start learning those things. Like when we first brought plumbing in, to start understanding plumbing, I bought a bunch of plumbing textbooks, right? We hired a plumbing expert, we brought people in, so we'd start learning it.
Mm-hmm.
But once you brought that in house, it actually got worse before it got better, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
more expensive. There were more problems. There were more headaches. And you have to deal with that and get through that learning curve. And then eventually it gets better. It's a better system, but it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk talks about how it's hard to produce a car, but it is
Mm-hmm.
10 to 100 to 1,000 times harder to build the system that builds that car. That's what we're working
Yeah.
on, is
Mm-hmm.
building that system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you talk about getting people on board to try
Yeah.
something new,
Yes.
and that really comes down to culture.
Right.
I can't convince a typical construction worker to do the work the way that we're doing it.
Of
It's
course.
just not normal. They,
Mm-hmm.
in their mind, they say, "Hey, my granddad did it this way, my
Mm-hmm.
dad did it this way,
Mm-hmm.
and by
Mm-hmm.
golly, I am going to do it this way as
Exactly.
well."
Exactly.
And so
Mm-hmm.
we, part of our culture is finding the kind of people that are willing to adapt and make
Right.
change.
Of
And that
course.
means there's a lot of people that don't get hired here because they just don't fit that bill. We need people
Interesting.
who think differently.
Interesting. And it's also, wow. So it's another thing to come up with the system, but then it's also another thing to look for the right people to do it, which is a challenge in itself. But then, you know, putting in that effort to finding the right people is actually crucial to building that system, because otherwise, you can't have people not wanting to, we've been doing this before, you're telling us to change now, and you like we're so it's in their minds like, why fix if it isn't broken, right? But really, it's just about efficiency. I love that it's harder to build the system. Of course, that is quite true, and that is indeed the challenge that we have today, and the challenge that Norhart is tackling. But I understand Norhart is also tackling a much larger challenge, a much bigger, profound challenge at large, economical, maybe societal as well, which is the housing crisis. And there is a housing shortage, and mostly because of the affordability crisis in America is quite a significant issue. Um, First off, I kind of want to like relate this to what J- Japan does. Japan's economy is very, even China to some degree, of course, is like their economy is driven by construction, right? They do a lot of constructing. Japan, in particular, is very advanced in it, and their whole economy is geared toward moving their whole economy led by construction. And when it comes to America, however, this is something I wanted to bring up, because you say that you guys are bringing down affordability, you're bringing down the cost of actually building a house, which is funny because you're seeing all these videos of like contractors like going through houses that were built for, or like selling for $1.8 million, and they're looking at all these, like flimsy work, like subpar quality work and all that. And it just goes to show that the goal of a lot of constructions, or let's say some companies, really is to bring down the price so they could sell it at a much higher rate, right? So they could sell it on a much higher, um tack on whatever price they want to put on there, do it as much as possible, as little cost as possible. Now here's my question is, Norhart is trying to solve the housing shortage by bringing down affordability so people can have more homes. I love that. I think that is the way to go, not just in America, but mostly in America because of the crisis, but everywhere else in the world as well. If we can figure out how to bring that down and to bring this housing to these people at a much more affordable rate, then we'd see less homelessness, we'd see more families happily secure with their own homes. How does Norhart plan to address and ultimately solve this crisis? And what challenges do you foresee in achieving this goal? Because, Mike, one of the challenges I see is that, sure, you're going to bring down the shortage or like the affordability, but you still have these companies who are going like, okay, hey, that's good, Mike. That's a good thing that you're doing. We're still going to sell it for this price. How would Norhart tackle this? How do you guys are how what are you guys doing differently?
Ooh, this is such a good question because just being very transparent,
Hmm.
if you went and looked at the properties that were leasing to residents,
Hmm.
right now they're about the same price as anyone else. So you
Hmm.
look at me and say, Mike, what the heck? You talk about solving housing
Hmm.
affordability, your rents are about the same as everyone else.
Hmm.
If we were to lower rents today, which we could,
Hmm.
we would solve housing affordability for thousands of people. That's great. That's not the goal. Our
Hmm.
goal is to solve it for millions of
Okay.
people. To do that, we're taking those profits and putting it into the system that builds that housing, right? That production infrastructure
Okay.
so that we can continue to drive down those costs.
Hmm.
And then our goal is to reach a production level. Our dream is eventually 60,000 units per year. That we're producing so many units in a given market
Hmm.
that the abundance of supply starts bringing down the price naturally. And here's
Okay.
really right to your point, and
Hmm.
this is the magic. It doesn't just solve it for our own residents. It actually solves it for everyone in the market that we're serving because that abundance of
Okay.
supply brings
Mhm.
price down for all of the housing units in that market.
Okay. Wow. That is a concept. That is a profound concept. Okay. It simplifies. It almost really simplifies what the crisis is, right? And how you guys are trying to solve it. You just want. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's quite the concept. You just want to increase the supply, make sure you do it as fast as you can, at little cost as possible. So when you're putting all that units in there, will naturally bring the prices down. Of course. I love that. I love that concept. How have you seen other companies when you talk to them about this, other firms, and the way that you guys are approaching things? How what's their reaction like? How have you seen them take this? Do you think it's something that that is, like, are you getting the same kind of pushback when it comes to the same pushback that you get in construction?
There's so many different people out there. There's some that push back and say, this is stupid. Like, why even trying it? There's others that are excited for it. I
Hmm.
would say that in the world of real estate, you've got different kinds of players. I
Okay.
think there's a large group of people that want to invest in real estate to have a cushy, relaxed lifestyle. In fact, I think
Hmm.
that's probably a large majority of them. And so they're not really focused on trying to solve housing affordability. They're
Hmm.
focused on, am I able to live on a beach? For me, I could retire tomorrow if I wanted to,
Hmm.
but it's not about the money, right? You could shovel $100 bills in my grave and like, it does not do anything for me. I want to make a meaningful impact.
Right.
So there, people in that camp tend to be kind of resistant to it.
Of
There's
course.
other people that are trying to solve housing affordability, but
Hmm.
they're doing it in a different way. They're
Hmm.
getting government grants and programs in order to subsidize the cost of that housing. It's
Okay.
a legitimate path forward. It does provide more affordable housing. The problem is it will never solve the problem. The
Yes.
problem is so big that you
Hmm.
can't take enough money from other sectors of the economy
Yes.
through the
Exactly.
government and feed it into housing. You just
Hmm.
never get there. And
Wow.
so our thought has always been the only way you solve housing affordability is by solving the cost of construction. And we'll see if we can execute well on that over the next decade or two.
Well, that is especially the vision, the company culture that you guys are trying to achieve. You place a strong emphasis on values and culture as well, and which is a driving force when it comes to the unique construction approach, or revolutionizing the construction approach that Norhart is doing. Before I get to that question, actually, Norhart, how much of it is construction wise, and how much of it is just like on the real estate side, so to speak? How much of your work involves construction? Is it like the major part of the company?
Yeah, so construction is maybe 70 to 80% of our
Right.
staff.
Right.
And then we probably have around 20% in the property management area. And then
Mhm.
we've got another 10% on things like software developers developing up new innovative stuff, or fund managers and asset managers and that sort of thing as well.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting because, of course, you have all these real estate companies and firms as well, and teams and organizations who decided like, okay, we're going to bring in construction where in our thing as well, because why not? Because they're already in it. They want to be the ones supplying. They're already, it's a lot of companies are doing this. A lot of organizations are doing this, but I think it's one thing to. I love that angle right now that I just came up with. Okay, so you're putting these units out, you're selling units, you're selling houses, and you realize like, okay, I could just, why not just build these, build these myself and be the supplier and all that. So you're going to bring in a construction arm into your firm, but it's almost like it's different what Norhart is doing because, okay, we have these units, we have this goal and this vision that we're trying to achieve. We are a construction first company, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. But in order to do that, we need to revolutionize our processes. We need to revolutionize or change our system so we can bring forth more, you know, proper, affordable housing so we can solve this crisis as well. And that really reflects the company, the culture, the vision that Norhart is saying. How does your culture now, uh, which focuses on character, attitude, conduct, how does this shape your team's approach to projects and ultimately influencing the overall success or overall, you know, success of achieving that vision? I'm very interested in this unique approach that you guys have. How did you come up with a culture that matches the vision?
Yeah, if you want to change the world, you need people who are capable of actually changing it, right?
Okay.
The most important lesson that I've ever learned, hands down, is
Mhm.
to hire the very best people.
Wow.
And when I say the best, I truly mean the best. We
Mhm.
will fly people in from other states to come work during the week
Wow.
and fly
Wow.
them home on the weekend. We
Mhm.
had one employee that in 2007, Steve Jobs announced the brand new iPhone. Steve Jobs walked off stage, and our employee walked on that same stage following Steve Jobs' announcement. Our
Wow.
acceptance rate into our company right now is 0.4%.
Hmm.
Because some comparison, Harvard acceptance rate is 10 times easier in
Mm.
our company right now.
Mm.
And in construction, that's just unheard of.
Yeah. Yes,
See,
exactly.
those people change things. They unlock doors for you that
Wow.
you had no idea could be unlocked. They will change the world.
Right.
Now,
Right.
most people at this point look at me kind of like an odd look and they say, Mike, that sounds expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is expensive because you need to pay top of market salaries. You need to give top of market benefits. We compare ourselves to Google when it comes to benefits, which again, we're offering things like unlimited paid time off to frontline construction hourly workers, which is unheard of.
Wow.
And so, yes, it's expensive. But what most people fail to understand is that the best people outperform the average by 2 to 5 to 10 times as much.
Interesting.
So if you look at it instead of a cost per person, instead look at it as a cost per unit produced, the best people are not your most expensive. They're actually your least expensive.
Wow.
So for those of you who feel like you can't afford to hire the best, my simple answer is this.
Okay.
You can't afford not to.
Wow, that's so cool. That is very cool, and I'm a firm believer of that. That the more highly qualified, the actual best, the more you hire them, actually less cost. I love that. I love that you taught us that concept, that perspective today. You shared that to us, because when it comes to most constructions, or not really, not just construction companies, right, but mostly with construction, because like you're just trying to get these low cost people, to just do the job, do the grunt work, and make sure that just everything is done, right? But it also applies with other companies. Like, okay, let's just get these people on these rates, and then let's just make sure they get the work done. But you actually end up losing more, or actually spending more, because they do subpar work, and they probably quit in less than a weekend, and you have to spend more resources to look for a replacement and train and whatnot. People, there's almost a short-sighted vision of cost, right? Especially when it comes to quality of people, you want to reduce costs now, but really in the long run, when you're bringing in these quality people, you're not only increasing the quality work that is being done, you're reducing your costs in the long run and moving your vision forward much further, because now you have quality people that are actually, you can be assured of who's going to join you in that vision. I love this. I love that concept. Of course, Mike, that is unheard of in construction. My goodness, like, what, you're approaching construction as if you were approaching like a Silicon Valley mine, or like with the innovate tech firm innovators, really, right? Mike, you have your own podcast. It's called Zero to Unicorn. A Norhart podcast is you're directly hearing from the Kaeding family recount their history, founding the operating Norhart into a unicorn level business in construction. I love that, in the construction industry, with a mission to positively impact the way people live. Mike, I'd like to just give you this opportunity. What else is it that you would like to share about Norhart that separates you guys? Where can we find you, and where can we learn more about Norhart?
Yeah, the best place is to visit our website. That's norhart.com. That's NORHART.com. And on that, you can see our podcast, like you just mentioned. One of my favorite episodes was with Michael Usland. He is the executive producer and the originator of Batman. It took him 10 years, 10 years to actually make his dream a reality. He was able to eke out the movie rights when he was young and actually get some investors involved to buy those rights. And he thought this would be a slam dunk, but nobody wanted a dark and serious superhero movie. But he didn't stop. He just had one door slammed in his face after another, but he didn't stop. And after 10 years, he was able to make it a reality and really made the superhero genre what it is today.
Really?
And then the other thing on our website is our investment platform. We've opened this up now that anyone can invest in what we're doing, and we're offering some great rates of return for those who are interested in investing with us. And so it's worth taking a look at that as well.
Mike, it's you guys. What you do is Norhart. It's truly a unicorn. I love that. I love that you shared that with us today. Mike, one last thing, one last bit of wisdom, one last thing to share about Norhart, or anything at all to our audience and listeners. Take us home.
The other useful point I would share that I've learned a lot
Hmm.
is that anytime we start something new, we're
Hmm.
going to be terrible at it. And that's okay. See, when we're kids, we understand we're not good at things, right? But we're
I
okay.
love
We don't know how to walk, we don't know how to talk, we don't know how to ride a bike. But there's something that happens in us as we grow older. We think that when we start something new, we should be good at it out of the gate. But what I've learned is that you need to get in there and just try and fail. And in fact, it's that process of continually
that.
failing, learning, and iterating that enables you to be incredibly successful at what you do. So don't be afraid of failure and just get in there and take massive action.
I love that. I love that. Wisdom, reminders. I love that you've shared your time and your vision with us today, Mike. Thank you so much for bringing Norhart and what you do with Norhart and your team as well. Kudos and hats off. 'Cause, hard hats off to you guys, of course. To all our audience and listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed Mike's insight as much as I did. For all the visionaries wanting to change the world, look no further than seeking inspiration at Norhart and what they do. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And to all our audience and listeners out there, see you on the next one.
All right, so here's the thing, we try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.